Hello everybody, Mike Westphal here with McDonald Garden Center. Hope everybody's having a great day. Today I am really excited to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is porch pots with pizzazz. So making containers, making porch pots, it's one of my favorite things to do every single season. I mean, I'm changing mine constantly throughout the season. I absolutely love doing it. So, whether it's spring, summer, fall, even into winter, we're always doing different things with our containers, and they just add so much, whether it's by your front door, on your porch, on a patio out back, a deck, or in the landscape. I mean, you can use these everywhere. I probably have somewhere around 10, 15 containers that I kind of swap out and change, and I've got some in my landscape, I've got some up on my porch and patio. There's so many different ways to use them, and there's so many different, literally the possibilities are endless of what you can do. And so every year I like to try new things and different styles, and just love to kind of, play with different ideas and textures and color. And that's what we're gonna kind of talk about today, is I'm gonna give you a little bit of an idea of how you can make a container. We've got some simple kind of examples, and then we've got a lot of other things that you can do as well. So you can do basic, all the way to kind of extreme, avant-garde, kind of different types of pieces. So much fun to make containers, and that's what we're gonna talk about today. As always, let me know where you're watching from and ask questions throughout this. So we've got lots of people watching that. Let's see, we've got Peggy at Sandbridge, we got Lynn in Norfolk, Ann, Michelle, Terry, Natalie. So we've got a great crowd out there. Feel free to ask questions throughout this webinar. And I will get to them. If I don't get to them right away, then I will definitely get to them at the end. So the first thing I always like to start with is, what are you going to need to make a porch pot? So of course, you're going to need these three things. You're going to need plants, you're going to need a container, and you're going to need soil. So let's talk about each one. So the plants, huge assortment. You can do trees, shrubs. You can do, trees and shrubs, you're probably typically doing one, maybe a little bit of a ground cover underneath it, and they're going to be a little bit longer term, something that you're going to keep for maybe 4 or 5 years, and then you're going to plant it in the ground. But perennials work really well in containers. There's lots of great perennial options. I am just in love with using like hellebores and ferns and heucheras in a shade container because those plants last almost all season long. They're almost evergreen. So really, really fun to kind of play with that. But there's lots of great blooming perennials as well. Some that can make great kind of higher pieces in a container. Some that will make great trailers. Of course, you can make containers out of herbs and vegetables and so many different options. But I think most of us want blooms. Most of us want, the attractive color that we can get from a container, and it throws a lot of different options out there. It allows us to kind of change and do different things. So lots and lots of options with plants. Now, containers, not as many options. You typically have your four kind of, bread and butter ones, which is going to be ceramic, like this over here. Ceramic is a great option. They're heavier weight, so they're not going to blow over in the wind. It's got fairly good porosity, so you're going to get some airflow, which means they could dry out a little bit faster. But they're great containers. You can get lots of different styles. Sometimes you can let the pot, do some of like the show, whether it's, a blue pot or, some of the teals and aquas and oranges and reds and yellows. There's tons of different colors that you can do with containers. So ceramic gives you a lot of options. It gives you weight, and they last a long time. So great option. One of our favorites, of course. Terracotta is absolutely amazing. Terracotta, is great. It's got a lot of airflow through it. So they are going to dry out a little bit faster, but plants love having good airflow into the root system. So that's why I'm going to talk about that a little bit more when I talk about the potting soil. But clay is a great option, a little bit lighter weight. You do run the risk of obviously it cracking and breaking a little bit more. So just be careful. What I always tell people is in the winter time, because that's obviously the biggest risk that you run with clay, is clay will absorb moisture. When it freezes, it can pop, it can break the pot. So keep it up off the ground. If you've got clay pots, terracotta pots out in your landscape, maybe put a couple bricks underneath them. If you got them up on your deck, porch, or patio, you're probably going to be fine. Just make sure that we're not overwatering too much in the winter. And maybe if we see a couple, hard days of freeze temperatures, maybe bring them in the garage or something if you can. Plastic is a great option as well. Of course, plastic growers grow in plastic, and the main downfall of plastic is there's not a lot of airflow. It's sealed off completely. The good side of plastic is it's lightweight. it's affordable, and it keeps the moisture in very, very well. So that's why growers use it. And there's lots of great decorative plastic pots out there. So really, really good. People are recycling pots. There's lots of great options for plastic out there as well. And then of course, concrete or stone. Concrete and stone are gonna be super, super heavy. Gonna last you probably a lifetime. They get a patina over time, but they're absolutely amazing. So you've got concrete as an option as well. So we've got 4 different types of containers typically. I'm sure there's a lot of other ones out there. There's fabric pots, there's different types of options out there, but those are kind of the 4 basics, and those are kind of the reasons that we might choose one or the other. Now, potting soil. Potting soil is super, super important. Whenever I talk about growing in containers, a porch pot, making a designer container, I always talk about the potting soil. Potting soil is very, very important. We want to use a potting soil, a high quality potting soil, because this is what the plants are going to live in. You need to invest almost as much as you're investing in your plants into your soil, because that's what they're living in. So get a good high-grade potting soil. This is our McDonald potting soil. This is our natural and organic. We also carry an all-purpose, but natural and organic is my favorite for outdoors because it holds a little bit more moisture. The biggest difference between our natural and organic and our all-purpose is going to be the wetting agent. And wetting agents are in potting soils to keep them from becoming a brick over time. So if you let a potting soil dry out that doesn't have a wetting agent inside of it, then it can actually become very, very solid and be very hard to break apart again. So that's kind of what a wetting agent's done. This one has a yucca extract in it, so you're safe to use it if you're using it for your vegetables or herbs or anything. It's a great bark-based potting soil. It's got lots of compost and peat and perlite in it, so it's got lots and lots of great things that are mixed into it, which make it a good potting soil. So if you ever see a garden soil or a planting mix, those are not designed for containers. You always want it to say potting soil on it. And of course, you can always feel confident buying plants and potting soil in containers from us here at McDonald Garden Center, because we spend a lot of time, testing them and doing all the different things that we need to do it. And our buyers are amazing and spend lots and lots of time on that. So you can always feel comfortable. These are the 3 things you need. Now, what else might you need? Plant food. Plant food is a very, very important thing. So really with containers, it's very simple. You need plants, pots, soil, and plant food. Now there's lots and lots of options out there. So let's first start with, at the time of planting, Biotone Starter is our favorite. It is a starter fertilizer. It's a plant food that is just loaded with beneficial bacteria and mycorrhizae. And these little organisms attach themselves to the root system, form a symbiotic relationship with the plant, and expand that root system so that that plant can grow and be extremely vigorous. So that's what you want to use. You want to use it at the time of planting. So Biotone Starter, get a bag of that, throw a cup or 2 into your container. I'm going to use that today so you can see how to use it. And then come back probably about 3 or 4 weeks later and use our green leaf plant food. That's going to be your kind of longer, granular plant foods, last a little bit longer. You're typically going to feed about every 3, 4, 5 weeks, somewhere in that range. I usually say 4 weeks, once a month with a granular plant food, to keep those plants thriving. A container is going to have a drainage hole. It should, at least. And then, I didn't mention that when I talked about containers, but you want to have a drainage hole, which means water is going to work its way through the soil, but it's also going to kind of wash some of those nutrients out over time. So I like granular plant foods because it's slower release. Now, if we're struggling with getting blooms, then I always supplement with this one right here. Blooming and rooting formula is absolutely amazing. I believe it's a 958, I think 11 or 8, 958.8. So extremely high in phosphorus. Phosphorus is what causes plants to bloom and root. So not only are you going to get a good rooting formula, but you're going to get more blooms out of it. So love blooming and rooting. Always have that around. I'll show you a bag here in a little bit. It's really, really a great thing to have. So I always have these 3 in my garden pharmacy, my garage pharmacy, that I can always kind of resort to. So Biotone at the time of planting, green leaf about 4 weeks later, blooming and rooting if I'm having less blooms or I just want to, maybe put on a show. If I've got a party coming up, I'll feed it with this maybe about 5-6 days beforehand. It's a liquid, it's a water soluble, so it's gonna get right to the root system, cause the plant to really go crazy, and it's a great way to put on a show, especially as we get into the summer time frames when it's just running low on phosphorus and needs a little bit of help. So let's get on to Thriller, Filler, and Spiller. So this is our simple recipe. So we've got our container, we've got our plants, we've got our, or maybe we haven't picked out our plants yet because we don't really know what recipe we're gonna use. So we're thinking about all the different options, and a great simple formula is Thriller, Filler, and Spiller. So that far image, that Angelonia that's spiking up that's going to be your thriller. Thrillers are going to be what gives you height typically. So typically when we're talking about containers, you can get kind of convoluted into like the rule of thirds, where your pot is 2/3 and then your plants are a third, or your plants are 2/3 and your pot's a third. But don't worry about that too much. Get some height. You want some height in your containers, and that's what a thriller is going to offer. It doesn't always have to be. Some people like that nice round, and I'm going to show you some examples of that. But thriller, filler, and spiller is an easy one. So the thriller is going to add the height. The filler is going to be this petunia up here. So that petunia is going to fill out that middle area of the container. And then you got your spiller, which is your sweet potato vine, and the spiller is going to trail over the side and kind of break up the container and allow that kind of natural look. So that's a really simple recipe. You can do it a lot of different ways. Like this one, they've got the angelonia in the back, they've got 2 petunias kind of up to the side, and then they got the spiller in the front. Super, super simple. So if you're putting it on a porch where you want to show the front mainly, then that's an easy way up by a door. If you're doing something where it's kind of out in the center and you're going to see it 360, you're going to see it all the way around, then you might put the thriller right in the middle. You might put 2 fillers and 2 spillers. Simple, simple design, simple recipe. Always talk about this thriller, filler, and spiller because it's a great, simple thing to remember and use whenever you're picking out your plants. So now I want to show you some recipes and kind of talk about the different ideas, and then we'll plant up a container and I'll show you how to do that. So porch pot recipes. Lots and lots of options out there. I would strongly urge you to go to Proven Winners website. We do a lot with Proven Winners. I'm going to use a lot of Proven Winner plants today when I plant up. They have an amazing website, an amazing resource that you can kind of tap into. They've got if you go to the plants tab, you can go and see all of their container recipes. And that's where I get a lot of ideas. Now, you're not always going to be able to find all the plants that they use there. We don't carry every single Proven Winner plant. We carry the ones that we know are going to do the best in our area, in the Hampton Roads area. So when you go to look for plants, you might look more for color and texture and style, more so than getting specific to the plant. So like this one right here is a great container. It's a great example of that thriller, filler, and spiller. We've got that Ogon, a chorus back there, which is a great little grass, and so it's got that yellow color, and that's going to be your thriller. And then your filler is going to be that coleus over there that's kind of nice and bushy and full and kind of filling up. And then we've got this great yellow million bell that's going to spill over the side. So thriller, filler, spiller. Also, I'm going to talk a lot about this because I find this to be kind of the most probably the hardest thing to learn or to do, and I even struggle with it from time to time, is to kind of find those subtle colors that kind of help work through the container. So you can do contrasting colors. That's easy. I love contrasting colors. You white and purple. Very, very good contrast. But then you've got your complementary colors. So there's lots and lots of different options. Complementaries are kind of opposites anyways. But in this container, you're going to see that yellow Ogon grass is really, really pretty. And so it's got a little bit of yellow, it's got a little bit of green stripe in it, which pairs perfectly with that million bell. So we got a little bit of a yellow container, but then you throw in that contrast with that coleus over there. And then you can see on that coleus, it's got a little yellow edge to it, which just kind of pulls it all together. So those small, subtle colors that you'll see really help pull it out, and you're gonna see that in the container that I make today. Next one is going to be, this one is one of my favorites. This is, I believe it's called Above and Beyond. So it's one of the Proven Winner mixtures. It's an awesome, awesome option. And you can see here, no thriller. It's just a filler and spiller combo, basically. It's all of these different super petunias. They are absolutely amazing. I believe it's Vista, Bubblegum, Fuchsia, and there's another one in there. But they're awesome, awesome petunias, and they're easy to grow, and you can just get this perfect little dome. So you can kind of see that rule of thirds there a little bit that I mentioned earlier, which is that's a taller container. So the top of that container is the third, and the container itself is 2/3. So sometimes when you got taller pots, you don't need to try and match that with height. You can still do the thriller, filler, spiller, but don't feel like you got to if you've got a 2-foot tall container that's kind of tall and narrow, you don't have to go tall and narrow, just go kind of bushy on the top. Still, you can include your thriller, filler, spiller if you want to, but you could also do something like this, which is just 3 great petunias, so a great combo. And you can see that mixture of color again. Now this is all pinks, but you got kind of a pale white, or you got a white with kind of like a pink kind of center. And then you've got your bubblegum, which is that true pink. And then you've got that fuchsia, which is kind of pulling out that darker tones of the pink of the bubblegum. So great, great container, easy option. And sometimes you can get these in hanging baskets. So hanging baskets are really easy. I'll show you one of those real quick when we get done with showing you some of these recipes. But hanging baskets make great options for containers. You just take off the hanger, pop it in a pot, and it's super easy and done, and you look like you did all the work yourself. And so it's a great option. I'll even use hanging baskets sometimes in my containers. If I'm doing a big pot and I need to put on a show, pop a hanging basket in the container, and you can get a huge show out of just that one hanging basket. And hanging baskets you can get good deals on sometimes. Even plant them in your landscape. So hanging baskets don't just have to hang. They can do lots of other things for you. All right, the next one is this great example here. I've actually got one of these kind of containers here. I'm going to show you here in a second. But this is another amazing option. So this is a little bit more on the contrast side. So this one's got the white, I believe that it looks like white verbena, and then it's got a pink and white, or kind of a purple fuchsia white and white striped million bell, and then it's got that great yellow with sorry, I'm not quite sure what. Let me see what that one is. I get confused between some of the. Let's see. This one is. Oh, that's a Biddens. Okay, so that's Biddens. So Biddens is that yellow flower. We've got lots of other kind of like, yellow blooming annuals that do really good, like the daisies, like the African daisies. I thought that might be an African daisy, but that's a Biddens, which Biddens are awesome. They're trailers too. So you've got verbena that's going to trail, you got the Biddens that's going to trail, and then they put this great looking grass back here that's going to have all that kind of nice color. It brings in a little bit of that white, but that's high contrast. So again, a great option to throw a thriller in there with a bunch of spillers and fillers that really play off those contrasting colors. So a really good example of that. And then we've got this one. So this is a monochromatic container. So, if you're ever telling a color story, now this one's a little bit different. I kind of brought this one because think outside the box is what I always tell people to. But if you want to do a white container, you can do all white blooms. You can do all pink blooms. You kind of saw that with the above and beyond I just showed. So you can get lots and lots of different options if you want to make it a color story. But you can make it monochromatic, which is kind of all one color. So this is kind of this dichondra, which is that trailing dichondra. And then you've got a dusty miller that's a little bit different looking, and then you've got a diamond frost euphorbia. So they're all in that kind of gray to white color, and that's kind of where you get this kind of cool look. It's different. Some people aren't going to love it, but if you do this with all pinks or all different shades of purples or all white blooming plants, you can tell a color story. Some people really like that. I mean, whites really show up great at nighttime. So if you entertain on your deck or porch or patio in the evening hours, white containers look great and really stand out. And something like this would be very different. If you got more of a modern look or aesthetic, then this is a great option for you too. So I just kind of wanted to show you that. Also, wanted to say, think outside the box. Think outside the box sometimes. Try different things. Think about different plants and textures, and this is kind of a cool look that you can get. So another great example of what you can do. And then here's just, a classic example of, and this is really what I'm going to talk about a lot, is kind of pulling out these subtle colors. So in this container, we've got some contrast. We've got this coleus here that's got this kind of pinkish center to it. So we've got kind of that darker burgundy. So we've got that dark burgundy, which is contrasting with the lime green of the sweet potato vine. So you got high contrast. But then inside that coleus is that little bit of that kind of pinkish kind of fuchsia stripe in the inside of it, and that's going to be pulled out with that petunia over there. So that petunia's got kind of that fuchsia center. Petunias are great because they kind of morph into a different color as that bloom kind of comes to the center, to the throat of that bloom, and you're going to get lots of different colors in there. And so it's important to kind of look at your flowers and see those different colors. And then this miscanthus, I believe is what that is got this great plume on top of it that has a little bit of pink in it. So you can kind of see that it all kind of starts to pull together. Even though you got lots of contrast, there's lots of similarities in colors and pulling out subtle tones that really work very well together. Let me show you one more option. So this one is a great option of kind of that color story, but I love this container because it goes from black from the container to that maroon color of that coleus. Then you've got this great gomphrena that's kind of pulling into that purple, that kind of pinkish purple, and then you've got your white and purple petunia. So we've gone from black all the way to white in one container, and it's telling a whole color story. It's very modern looking. It's got the thriller with the coleus, it's got a filler with the gomphrena, and then it's got that great petunia. So really cool recipe here that takes you all the way from a black container to a white and purple petunia to that pink gomphrena to that maroon coleus. So really, really cool option here to kind of show you how to tell that color story. So it's a really, really nice container. And there are millions and millions of other options. So I'm going to show you one now. I'm going to plant one up for you. Hello everybody. So I'm gonna plant up a container. So whenever I go out and I choose containers, at least here at McDonald Garden Center, and I hope you're all shopping with us here at McDonald Garden Center, I always like to use my cart as kind of a planogram. So I'll kind of start with the top of my cart and I'll just kind of place some plants out. And so when I went shopping out there, I said, I like to start with my thriller. I want an upright component to this piece. You know, I've got a white container, that's what I'm gonna use, and I'll show that to you here in a second, but I know I've got my container, I know I've got a white container, I've got my potting soil, I've got my plant food, I've got everything. Now it's time to pick out my plants. And I think this is where people struggle the most, and it's fun, and have fun with it, and don't get stressed about it, and ask us questions. That's what we're here for. So always ask us questions if you're here in the garden center. But hopefully with this webinar today, you'll be armed to come in and do some of this on your own if you want to. But we're here to help, of course, if you need it. So I always start with my thriller. I'm always looking for that upright component because that's gonna kind of tell my entire story a little bit. It doesn't have to. So I started with this pampas grass, papyrus. So this is a papyrus, really cool kind of frilly plant. It's green, it doesn't give me a whole lot of color. So I love this plant, it looks absolutely amazing as a thriller in a container. But I kind of said, maybe I don't want to do green because I'm trying to tell a color story. I'm trying to wrap all of these colors into one kind of complementary look. And so I felt like this papyrus, which is absolutely amazing, amazing, amazing plant, was kind of just green. And so I wanted to do something different. So I found this, one of my favorites, this cordyline. This is a Festival Burgundy cordyline made by Monrovia. We've got lots of different options. So you can get a red spike, you can get a green spike, but I saw this spike and I absolutely love it. It is monstrous, it is huge, and I love the graceful part of it where it just kind of drapes over and hangs over. I've grown these in containers for years and years. Sometimes the winters get them, sometimes they don't, but I love this plant. It's absolutely amazing, and it's just super, super easy to pair plants with. I'm gonna show you that. So now that I've got my thriller, then I had to start looking for some plants that were going to be complementary to it. So maybe I'll pull this back up just so you can see it kind of off to the side here. So I've got my thriller, it's this burgundy color. So then I started saying, okay, well, what colors can I find to kind of play with that? So I found this petunia here. So I don't know if you can quite see that, but look at that petunia. It's got that kind of really cool pink edge. So this is cosmic purple. So it's got that kind of dark, dark purple, which is going to pair with that maroon in there. And then I've got that kind of fuchsia pink. Now, I found that one, but then I love Proven Winners. Did I mention that earlier? So Proven Winners are awesome. And this one is Jazzberry, Vista Jazzberry. This was new, I think, last year, but really cool one. And what's really nice about this one is it's kind of this really pretty kind of dark pink color, but then it goes even darker, almost to a maroon in the center. So I don't know if you can quite see that in there. So look at that one right there. That kind of dark throat, and that pairs perfectly with this. So I definitely knew that I wanted to do this. And once you kind of find that one where you're like, okay, I definitely want to do that plant, then keep rolling with it, keep going with it. So I've got my petunia that I really, really liked. And then I said, okay, I want to start working to a different gradient of color. Maybe I want to start working my way to white. So I found this great looking verbena from Proven Winners again. This one's called Sparkling Rose. So this one's got that purple and pink in it, and it goes perfect with that petunia. So now I've got this working all the way to white already, and then I love to think of a white flower. White, like I said, I love white flowers. They look really, really great in containers, and this is one of my all-time favorites, Diamond Frost Euphorbia. Super, super easy to grow. So now we've got this great look here with 3 plants, and it pairs perfectly with that maroon spike. So that's kind of the look I'm gonna go with. And then I started saying, well, maybe I'll play around with some sweet potato vine, because you gotta love sweet potato vine. Great trailer, that would work very well. It adds a little bit more contrast, but does it pair perfectly with my cordyline? We'll see. So you gotta kind of play with it a little bit, and then I could still even add in that really pretty petunia, and I think I'm gonna add that in. This is what I think I really, really wanna do, is because when you get these multi-toned petunias, you start to kind of see all of these subtle colors in there. Let's see if I can find a good bloom for you to look at. That one's kind of a little torn up, but you can really see that dark burgundy throat, and then working its way to that hotter pink on the outside. So I really like that one, so that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna use some of those and maybe even pop in a sweet potato vine. We'll see if we've got space. So when I'm working on my cart at the store, then I'm always kind of planning that out and kind of thinking how I'm going to do this. And sometimes I'll buy a little bit more and I'll use them in different containers because maybe it didn't work out perfectly. And then sometimes I'll use them all in there. Now, I always tell people when I plant up a container, for example here, I'm gonna put probably a little bit more into it than maybe I would, because I want you to be able to see all of the options. I want you to be able to see what a full container looks like, but you definitely don't have to pack all of your plants in. You can, they're not gonna last quite as long because they're gonna get a little crunched for space. So I'm doing this for a little bit more of a show than I am saying that this is what I would typically recommend. So typically I would probably put these in a bigger pot if I'm putting all of them in there, but I want it to look full, I want it to look complete for you. So I've got my white container here. So we'll pop this up. We've got this off to the side. I've already got it filled with some potting soil. So I'm using our McDonald's natural and organic potting soil, of course. So I've got that, and it's a really great potting soil. Remember, I talked about potting soil. I talk about it a lot, but it's a bark-based potting soil. You can see all the perlite in there. You can see all the vermiculite and peat moss and just this great kind of mixture. And you should be able to kind of see that. You should have a little bit of bark in there. You should be able to see some chunks. That's good for aeration. So really good potting soil. Great place to start. Now, I've got it pretty full. I've probably got it about, about 2/3 full. Now I'm using a liner today, so I can take this maybe apart if I want to, but kind of like an insert, and this is not a bad option. You can always pop a plastic pot inside, pot in that, and then you can pull it out if you need to. So you can do that with those fabric containers. I love doing that, but I'm doing this just for simple purposes and for ease here. So got our thriller. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you can pop your thriller right in the center and you can plant all the way around it if you're doing a 360-degree container. I typically try not to be super symmetrical, especially in the landscape, but even in my containers. I try not to be very symmetrical, because typically what I find is if I lose a plant, if something happens and I lose a plant, then all of a sudden I'm asymmetrical, and I'm like, I've got to have a mid-season Euphorbia diamond frost that's huge, and all of a sudden I'm like, I can't find that. So I typically try to be asymmetrical so that I don't have to worry about that if that ever comes up. So I'm going to plant this in the back of my container. So we're going to take and we're just going to squeeze our container here a little bit. And we'll just take this out. You can see that great root system. Look at that. Absolutely amazing. And then I always like to loosen up my roots a little bit. So we're going to take this and just kind of loosen it up just a little bit. We don't need to like score it. We don't need to take a knife to it or anything. We just need to loosen it just a little bit so that it knows that that it can kind of go into its new home and it's into the potting soil a little bit more. So we'll just make a little home. I'm going to put this right in the back of the container. Kind of keep it, one, out of my way, but also gives me all this great space right here in the front to plant in. So that's perfect. Now at this point, don't ever forget your biotone. So I got my biotone here, and I'm going to take this. I'm just going to take a good 2 handfuls of it, and I'm going to put it right into the soil and right around the root system of that. But I'm also going to put it right in the soil so it gets to all of the other plants. So don't forget your biotone plant food. Really good option there. So we've got that in there. Now all I got to do is place my annuals and place my color and place all of my fillers and spillers. So the Diamond Frost Euphorbia is definitely going to be a filler. The Diamond Frost is going to work its way all the way throughout this container. It's going to pop in and out. It'll actually kind of go over the side a little bit, but it's a great option. I'm going to put this kind of in the back corner, kind of close to the quarter line here. So we're just going to gently squeeze this pot. What I like to try not to do is grab plants by the top as much as I possibly can. So a great way of doing that is just kind of slide your hand over the top of the soil and then just kind of turn it upside down, and that plant will come right out. So then we'll just kind of loosen up that root system a little bit, and this is going to go right back here. And take your plants and work them a little bit. I always say just kind of just touch them up a little bit, move them into the position that you want them to. I also like to tell people is, don't always look for the perfect plant, especially in a container. So this one, is a little one-sided. You can see it's got hardly anything really over here. It's got a couple new pieces, which is good, but it's really, really heavy on one side. And you'll see that sometimes. Sometimes it just didn't grow heavy on that side. Maybe it was sunlight. Maybe it was in a tray growing with other plants. So this one is a great spiller, and it's all going one direction, which is exactly what I want. So I'm going to use this verbena next. And this is where I start to tell the color story. So I've got my white. Now I've got to put something next to it that's got white. It doesn't have to be right next to it all the time, but typically I like to kind of tell the story all the way around. Sometimes I'll throw in a little bit of a contrast or something different in there. But there's our verbena right next to our euphorbia. And then we're going to go with that pink. So we've got to go with that. We got to pull out the pink color in our verbena here. So we've got this kind of fuchsia, we've got white to light pink to darker pink all in one verbena bloom. And so that's where we're going to pop in this Vista Jazzberry, which is going to be really, really nice. And this one is a little bit more of a filler. So I'm going to actually kind of put this kind of more towards the center and into the back here, because I'm still thinking I might play with this sweet potato vine a little bit. I love sweet potato vine, and I think that's going to look good to really get some of that darker, higher contrast. So we'll put this Vista Jazzberry towards the back here. So it's kind of really more in the center. We've got our cordyline, we've got the Vista Jazzberry, we've got our verbena, and we've got our diamond frost back here. So it's already looking amazing. I mean, I could stop there and I could be perfectly happy with it, but I think I want to try and get the sweet potato vine in there. Again, trying to put on a show for you, and so you can see a little bit more. And I really, really love this petunia, and I want to use this as well. So that really plays well with that sweet potato vine. And even in the sweet potato vine, you'll see kind of the underside of the leaf is a little bit more on that kind of purpley side, which is going to pair nice with all of this. So let's get this petunia in place. That's cosmic purple petunia. So we'll pop this over. I might need a little bit more soil in there. So let me grab a shovel full of my soil here just to bring that up to level. Perfect. All right, so we've got our petunia. And this is going to be a little bit more of a filler too. So these two petunias will kind of play together here and kind of start to mix and mingle into each other, and those colors will look really, really great together because they pair perfectly. And then we're going to pop some sweet potato vine in there. Let's see which one I like better. Because remember, I don't always like it to be kind of that perfect shape. I always want it to be kind of slightly bent or a little messed up is actually perfect for me. So we're going to pop this one in right here. Good. That looks great. So now I've got one more little spot. Now I could, of course, obviously leave that empty. I think I really, really like this petunia, so I'm going to pop another one of those in there. That's why I grabbed two, because I thought I might be able to fit another one in there. All right. So now that I'm done, all I would have to do is fill in the gaps, pop in a little bit of soil just to fill in those gaps, give it a nice drink. We've got to water our containers. That's very important. And then about 3 or 4 weeks from now, I'm going to go back and give it some green leaf plant food. So I'll come back through with my plant food, my green leaf, pop that in there. If I ever start to see the blooms starting to fizzle or fade, then I'll use my blooming and rooting formula, which is a great option. And that is that 958-8. So it's going to have a lot of phosphorus in it. But this is a great looking container. So I'll try and kind of lean it over a little bit here for you so you can kind of see the top of it. Look at that. All of those colors just perfectly playing with each other. So this is telling that color story that I mentioned. So we've got, again, go through it one more time. Love my thriller. So I love this burgundy cordyline. So I knew I wanted to incorporate that in. So then I found this great Vista petunia. The jazzberry that's got that kind of darker purple throat, so it matches perfectly with my cordyline. And then I found this verbena, which is taking me into the white direction, which really brightens it up, adds a lot of contrast. So we've got this verbena with the white, the soft pink, and the dark pink in the bloom. And then we could put the diamond frost euphorbia in it. And then we could even come over and take that dark colored sweet potato vine, which I don't know if I mentioned that one. That was, I think, Raven. Yeah, so Sweet Caroline Raven. It's a sweet potato vine. And then we've got that cosmic purple petunia, which is really cool. And it just kind of pairs perfectly. And then with this white pot, it's good contrast, pulls in the white flower, and you can just see it all the way around. Looks really, really great. So really nice, easy container. You're gonna see the back side of it here is a little bit empty, but this diamond frost is gonna help fill that in. Even the petunias are already starting to kind of come through there a little bit, so it's gonna be really easy for that to fill in. But I'm gonna put this just facing just like this, up against a door, on a porch, on my steps maybe, and this is gonna bloom all summer long. It's gonna be super, super easy to maintain. If it gets a little wild, go in and prune it back. Give it some plant food, kind of to revive it a little bit. Don't be afraid to prune some of your annuals. Annuals spend a lot of energy blooming. And why do they bloom? They're blooming to try and reproduce. So we want to make sure that we're helping them along. And sometimes they're blooming to reproduce, but all of their seeds are non-viable. So those seeds are going to fall off and they'll keep on blooming. Now, typically what sometimes happens is they'll run out of food or they'll get just a little stringy and tired. And so it's good to kind of take them and cut them back a little bit. Tend to your containers, tend to your porch pots. Plant food, water, very, very important. Make sure you're not overwatering. Make sure their drainage hole is cleared. Make sure you're not underwatering either because containers are up above the ground and are going to dry out much faster. So we got to water it, we got to feed it, and we've got to keep it maybe a little bit pruned and deadheaded and things like that. The verbena, don't need to be deadheaded, but you'll want to pick those off if they start to fade and fizzle on you. The petunias you really don't have to do anything with, but if they start to trail and get too long, then sometimes you got to pick them. The sweet Caroline, the sweet potato, the raven one, this one will trail and hang, and if it gets too long and too crazy, just cut it back. It'll keep on coming. The cordyline, you don't have to do anything to. Maybe every once in a while some of these leaves will go brown. You just go in and pull them out, cut them out. Very, very simple. And this is a great looking container. So really happy with the way this turned out and tells that kind of color story. Love pinks, whites, burgundies. We kind of did the same thing that one recipe showed us, which is going from, white to almost this dark black purple. So we've kind of enveloped it all into one container. So really, really cool option. So we'll put that off to the side. I saw some questions, so I'm going to answer those real quick, and then I'll show you a couple other things real quick and wrap it up. All right, so we've got, let's see. Barbara said, was always told to wait until after Mother's Day to plant outside. Your thoughts? I don't think, Barbara, not in our area. I was always told tax day, so April 15th, which is basically right around now. So April 15th is a great option. April 5th, really, in Virginia Beach. That's kind of our frost date. Now, you could wait till Mother's Day. That's perfectly fine. I usually say tomatoes, cucumbers, squash. I usually wait till about May, but I don't think you need to wait till Mother's Day. Definitely not here. Well, our frost is gone. It's a perfect time to get out there and plant, and the temperatures are warming up. So Barbara, I say go for it. I would not wait till Mother's Day for sure. Get out there before it gets too hot because Mother's Day is May, and then all of a sudden we're in June and it's really, really warm and you're watering like crazy. So get some of those plants in a little bit early, especially in your landscape and in your containers. You'll get a slightly different mix if you wait until May. You might get more of the lantanas and some of the, portulacas and some of those drought-tolerant plants. Vinca, we don't carry until May. But if you want some color and you want to get started, I say go for it because it's the best time to be out in the yards in the spring. Teddy said, I use red geraniums on my porch steps, tall woven baskets. Would you recommend for spiller? I love purple with the red. So if you like purple, the sweet potato vine would work perfectly fine. There's great purples in the verbenas, so you can get some purple verbena. Even purple petunias would look really good. We got a great purple petunia from Proven Winners that is absolutely amazing. That would look great. Sometimes you'll get, trying to think of any other kind of purple trailing plants. I think that's pretty much usually it. So I like the sweet potato vine option. So that would give you that kind of purple color. But if you want blooms, I think I'd go with the Supertunia from Proven Winners, the purple one. That's a really, really nice one. Can't remember the exact name off the top of my head right now, but it's a great option, and we've got tons of them. It's one of our favorites. It's tried and true. It blooms nonstop. Very easy. There's purple million bells. There's purple verbena. Or, it's a really, really good option. I don't know why I forgot about this one because I didn't bring one in. Scaevola. There is a Scaevola. It's a little bit more on the blue side, but I think it's kind of a paler purple, really. So Scaevola is absolutely awesome. Great trailing plant. So Scaevola, hard to spell. I believe it's Scaevola, Scaevola. So Scaevola is a great one. We'd carry a ton of them. We have them in stock now, and you can definitely get them pretty much all the way through the entire spring into summer season. So definitely check that one out. That would be my option there for you. That or the purple petunia. So Teddy, great question. Nancy said, best plants for pots in direct sun. All of those that I just planted are great options. Begonias, marigolds, grasses. I mean, the list is endless for sun. You've got so many options in full sun. Shade is a little bit trickier. Shade, you get more on the impatiens, the green leaf begonias, but full sun, you've got lantana, hibiscus, mandevilla, diplandina. I mean, the list just goes on and on with full sun. Vinca, portulaca, verbena, petunias, million bells. You got so many options. So trust me, you come in here, you'll find plenty of things for full sun. Now, if you're thinking more on the drought side, if I'm thinking like I've got a full hot sun area and I can't really get to watering it all the time, then I would go more with like the lantanas, the portulacas, things like that I know are very, very good at being kind of on that drought resistant side, or drought tolerant side, I should say. So Deborah said, is it perennial? So not quite sure which one, Deborah, you were asking about. All of what I planted was annual. The cordyline is probably what you're talking about, the grassy cordyline. That one is considered an annual in this area, but I've had success with mine coming back year after year. I've lost them. I think I lost them not this past winter, but the winter before. But I'm fine with that. I got probably good 4 or 5 years out of it. It was actually getting probably too big for the container. I was having a hard time getting some plants around it. But yeah, I mean, I got a lot of years out of it. And you can protect them. You can bring them in your garage or your shed, and they'll make it all the way through. It's a cordyline, which can grow indoors very well, so you can always bring it inside, enjoy it throughout the winter time frame, and take it back out. So a couple options there for you. Cindy said, I generally think of coleus as a shade plant. Are there varieties that can take full sun? Yes, there are, Cindy. We carry some by proven winners that can definitely take full sun. They're listed as full sun. Most coleus, you're right, are going to be a little bit more in the shade, and while you typically see those as great thrillers for shade, you can get some that grow in full sun. I don't know all the variety names off the top of my head, but we do have some in now, and we'll continue to carry some. They're all going to probably say, sun to part shade. Some might say part shade to full shade. Those would be the ones you'd want to be a little bit more careful about. I typically find that the maroon, the darker colored coleus typically do a little bit better in full sun, or can handle the sun a little bit better, whereas the lime green, or the ones that have a lot of striping or colors in them, typically do a little bit better in shade. So that would be kind of my recommendation there. But always read your tag. Proven winners right there on the tag is going to tell you full to part sun. So it'll tell you right there on the tag. And if it says full to part sun, it's been tested, it's been proven. That's what I love about proven winners, is they do all of that hard work and they do all that rigorous testing and making sure that they're providing the best plants for us. So you're gonna find a lot of proven winners out there, but we get first crack at it because we're a local independent garden center. So you gotta come check out all the new proven winners this year. All right, so let's see, the next one was, Sally said, can you suggest a thriller, filler, spiller plants for shade? For sure, lots and lots of options there. So even that cordyline can actually take a little bit of shade. So that would actually work. It works in sun or shade. The green spike, I think, works great. The papyrus, I keep saying papyrus, this one's papyrus, not pampas. So the papyrus actually grows great in shade. Really, really great thriller. For fillers, I love begonias, impatiens. Those are some of my favorites for kind of the shade area. That's going to be kind of a filler that's going to give you a lot of blooms. Trying to think of, you've got the coleus options that work in shade. Trying to think of, now I've lost the word of the other one. Caladiums. Caladiums are great. Now caladiums typically you won't get into a little bit late in the season, about May time frame, but caladiums work great as a thriller. For spillers, you can do any of the scaevolas, actually work very, very well. That dichondra, that silver dichondra works really well. All the sweet potato vines grow in shade. We've got lots of great shade options. A little bit more limited for sure. Shade, sometimes I start to think really outside the box. So sometimes I'll go and I'll pop like a perennial fern into it just to add a different texture. I also look at houseplants a lot. Houseplants, Mother Nature didn't invent houseplants. So houseplants are just tropical plants that happen to grow inside. So they can grow outside in the summer. And you can get lots of cordylines. Like I mentioned that one cordyline there, we've got lots of those. You got ferns, crotons, tons and tons of different options that you can plant. Tropicals, houseplants, in your containers outside in the shade. That's what they're going to want. So you think tropicals and you think they got to be full sun, right? Well, most indoor plants, tropicals that we have for our indoor plant selection, really like a little bit of shade outside, because in the tropics, in the rainforest, they're almost all growing underneath trees. So they're getting dappled sunlight anyways, and they're used to it. So when you're looking at tropical plants, you got your majesty palms. A majesty palm with a white impatient and maybe a shrimp plant are great options. Chrysandra is a great orange. I can go on and on forever. So you get the point. There's plenty of options for you. So we got great options there for you for the shade. Peggy said, my deck gets shade until 2 p.m. in the summer, then the hot sun, best recommendation. So Peggy, if it's till 2 and then you're getting hot sun all the way till 8 o'clock at night, I would classify that as full sun. Especially because it's one of the hottest periods of the day. Really the hottest would be like 12 to 6, but that's still a lot of sun. I would not classify that as shade, because typically what I say is going to be in the shade is afternoon shade. So if I know that I'm going to get sun till 2 o'clock and then all of a sudden I'm going to get shade the rest of the day, I think you're going to be more in the kind of shadier side. I mean, that's still a fair amount of full sun, but typically when you get about 6 hours of hot sun, which is anywhere from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., then that's going to be considered full sun. So Peggy, I believe it was Peggy. Yeah. So Peggy, I think you've got tons and tons of options for full sun. If you feel like in that area, maybe I wouldn't do some of the ones that really demand a lot of light, like lantana or portulaca, but petunias, million bells, begonias, the cordyline, diamond frost euphorbia, sweet potato vine, all of those are going to work great for you. So you're going to have a really good option there. Maybe not vinca. So the things that really, really love it hot, I probably wouldn't do in that situation, but anything else that's kind of full sun recommended, maybe even to the shady side, I think you'd be fine. Dragon wing begonias would probably even work there too. All right, so Deborah said, when would you plant geraniums in Richmond? So you're probably, frost date is probably right around, I would say the 20th is probably what it is. I'm not 100% sure, 21st, somewhere in that range. So I would say watch, you got about 10 days, so you can look at your 10-day forecast and see where you're at. The last time I looked, we're here all the way, I think, pretty much in the 70s. So maybe a little bit of a cool down here and there, but a frost is what's going to hurt geraniums or any of our spring, summer annuals. So a frost occurs when the temperatures get below 40 at night, there's no clouds in the sky, and there's no wind, which typically doesn't happen much in this area about this time. So you're going to run a little bit of a risk if you plant them now. But Deborah, if you've got it in a container that maybe you can move into your garage or something, then I think you're going to be okay. But always just check your 10-day forecast or play it on the safe side. Wait another 10 days, then plant your geraniums. After that, I think you're in the clear. So let's see, I think that was everybody's questions. I'm going to wrap this up with just showing you the hanging basket idea, just to kind of show you that kind of thought. Hanging baskets, you get lots and lots of combos in hanging baskets. This is one of those recipes that I showed you when we were going through the slides. This one is, let's see if I can find I don't know if this one has the name of what this mix is. Sometimes it does, sometimes it does not. But this one has the Raspberry Rush Supertunia, and then it's got the white verbena, and then it's got that yellow Bittens. So remember when I was talking about the Bittens? So this is a great mixture right here. I could take this and pop it in a pot. Just take the hanger off. They come off very easily. You can cut them off or you can just slide them off. So you can take the hanger out. I can pop this right into a pot, and I've got a great look right here. Or I could hang this up, and then I could come along with Proven Winners does a great job with these little mixes in these kind of 6.5-inch container. These are really nice. I think it's 6.5 or maybe it's an 8, but it's a bigger size than your typical 6-inch. But this is that exact mixture, just all in one pot and ready to go. So smaller, a little bit younger, smaller pot. So I could take this hanging up on my porch, and then I could come through and I could plant these around a maroon spike or a green spike or around that papyrus plant. So you got great options there to kind of, do all of these different things. Throw a thriller in with this, and then you've got your container that matches your hanging basket, and you look like a pro, and it's super, super easy. So that's a great option there. And then of course, if you don't want to make a container and you just want something simple, then we've got containers already made up for you that you can just come in and get. So this is that dragon wing or that whopper begonia, and then it's got that green spike. So if you're looking for something with a little bit more shade tolerance, this is going to be a great option. And then we've got, anything from snapdragons to geraniums. We've got tons and tons of options of things. You can either pop these plastic pots right into your container, or like this one's in that kind of terracotta plastic pot. So I'd stick this right on my front porch. I'd be happy and I'd be good to go. And so if you need something quick and easy, we've got you covered. If you want to do it yourself, we got you covered. So lots and lots of different options. Like I mentioned, possibilities are absolutely endless. Denise said, do these principles work for Windows boxes? So yeah, definitely. Window boxes, you might not want a ton of height. So you might not want big thrillers in them. It just depends on how long your window box is, but you definitely want to play with height a little bit. So you might go more fillers and spillers and less thrillers. It's kind of personal preference there. But yeah, window boxes, same kind of idea, except you're kind of doing it in a run and you're not really mixing, kind of bigger plants in the back, trailers in the front. Now you might be able to, if you've got a deep window box, you can go through and put your, geraniums in the back and put your dichondra in the front, or your scaevola in the front, or whatever you might want to do. Or you can kind of stagger it. You can put your larger kind of filler plants in the back and then your spillers in the front. But definitely you want a mixture. You can do them all monochromatic, you can do them all one color, you can do them all one plant. You've got great options with window boxes, but yes, same principles work with window boxes. Some people will even kind of just, kind of go crazy with their window boxes and just put a bunch of different plants. I typically like to keep them all the same or similar, or try and tell that color story. So that's typically what I recommend. Keep them all kind of the similar, because it doesn't distract the eye. A lot of times people want to plant one of every type of bush in their landscape. Great if you're a collector of plants, but if you really want to kind of guide the eye and kind of be kind of that kind of soft feeling, that good feeling when you look at your front yard, your landscape, then you typically want kind of all kind of one kind of idea or color. I do lots of different containers, but I do them in different portions. So I typically do one kind of color scheme or idea on my front porch. I've got a large container on the side, on the corner of my house. That's where I'll usually do something different. I've got one around on my garage. I've got some on my back deck. So you've got them kind of spread around so you can do lots of different things. But usually in the front is where you're trying to either show off a little bit, or you want it to be appealing to the eye. You want people's eyes to be able to guide right to the front door. You want it to feel welcoming, and so don't go maybe too chaotic with colors and different things. But play with color. Just have them be complementary, have them either be contrasting, try and find those subtle colors, and I think you'll love it. And of course, ask us questions. So Denise, if you happen to be in the store, come and check us out, and we can help you with all of those questions if you have any. So I hope you all enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun. I love making containers. We've got container events coming up. We've got great deals all the time. We've got amazing options for you, huge selection. Containers are so much fun. Porch pots with Pizazz. You can go crazy, think outside the box. Millions and millions of options. So this has been a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this. This is one of my favorite things to do. It truly is. It's challenging. It's different. I can always change. I can always do different things. And so I just absolutely love doing them. So thanks for joining me today with Porch Pots with Pizazz. And we'll be back again and we'll do it again. So it's been a lot of fun. I hope you all have a great day, and we hope to see you here at the Garden Center. Bye, everybody.